Hey friend, in this tutorial, we're gonna be painting 10 watercolor trees. I'm gonna be breaking them down into 10 different shapes of trees. So we're gonna paint everything from a round shaped tree to a vase shape, cylinder, pyramid, bunch more. So you can get really experienced with a bunch of different types of trees that you can start to plug into your landscapes and more. So if you're ready, let's dive in. It's time to paint some trees. I'm gonna be using my size 6 round Heritage 4050 brush the entire time. We're gonna practice a few different techniques, but 10 different types or shapes of trees. We're gonna cover a round tree, spreading tree, oval, vase, column tree, open, an umbrella tree, a pyramid type tree, irregular shaped tree, and a round topped tree. So obviously these are not tree names, they are shapes that if you've been watching any of my videos on my channel for the past couple of years, you will know that I love to break down everything that I paint, draw, whatever, down to basic shapes first, and then I paint it. So you can sketch out these tree shapes beforehand. Like I have a little reference, mainly just for placement to make sure I don't run out of paper. Because we got to get some really cute thumbnails of all of our YouTube tutorials. So if I had like 9 fit on here and the 10th one had to go on a different sheet of paper, that would look very sad for the thumbnail. So I sketched mine out before, but I'm going to talk about each individual tree and its basic shape before I paint it. So the first one we're going to paint is a round shaped tree. So something like a walnut tree. And to sketch this round tree, I'm going to start with a ball for the top, or circle for the top, and then 2 circles on the bottom. Trying to get them to be about the same size, but these circles are gonna direct the shadow on my tree. So at the bottom, same side of each one of these circles is where I'm gonna add in a darker green for the leaves. So we have, once we start painting it in, the natural brush strokes, I'm going to use some dry brush effect to get this, more rough outer edge of the tree. And then we have our trunk. Like so. So you can sketch these balls out if you want to, these 3 circles, if you want to, as a guide, not necessary. So this is our round tree, maybe a maple. I have it down here for reference against, just so I make sure to fit all 10 on here. So I'm gonna grab my size 6 brush, and basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna work from light to dark to basically cover the entire leafy area of the tree with a lighter green, and then add in our darker shadows under those 3 curves where those three circles are. So I'm grabbing sap green and a touch of lemon yellow deep, and I'm going to add a lot of water to it. And I'm going to dab my brush on my paper towel before I go to my paper, because I want a dry brush effect for the outer edge, especially the outer edge of the tree. So as you can see, I'm kind of doing this like circular motion, like if you were to be brushing your teeth, and just kind of scrubbing is what it's called. Need a little bit more pigment. Scrubbing around the edge, and then I might grab water and bring that in. So just with the first value we're putting down of the very light green, we are already starting to see this really nice texture, and it looks, you're barely doing anything and it's already looking really nice. So I'm kind of spreading the hair of the brush and moving it around and dipping in my pigment every once in a while. And if it's looking too fluid, then I'm just dabbing off on my paper towel, scrubbing and scratching around. And if you're worried about damaging your brush, don't worry. If you have a really nice brush like these Heritage brushes, you won't damage it. Just make sure when you're done using the brush, you get water and you clean the brush and just kind of form the brush back to its tip. So while this is still a little bit wet, I'm gonna go in with a slightly darker value. So just adding more pigment to make it more opaque. And we're gonna start to add in some color around these curves. A little bit lighter than that, so I'm gonna grab water and blend that in. So with this mid-tone value of green, I'm gonna go up a little bit more on the circles than I will with the darkest green. That darkest green is just gonna hug that line on each circle on the bottom right. You could do the bottom left, just think about where your light source is coming in. So for this, it would be coming in over here. So this is where the shadow is. Maybe coming out on the edge a little bit and scrubbing it around a little bit more. And now we are ready for our darkest green. Grabbing a little more sap green and lemon yellow deep for my most opaque version of this green. I'm just gonna lightly dapple.
Is that a technical term? Dapple?
The shadow that, leaves cast on the ground with the light peeking through is called dappled light. So I'm just using that term.
Learn something new every day, folks.
But I don't think it's like a painting term.
Oh.
It might be. So I'm adding in the dark color. I'm just using the side of my size 6 brush and dancing around that bottom curve. I don't want to accentuate these circles too much to make it look like 3 balls sitting there. So I might come up here and darken just a little line. So it kind of makes it more irregular. Then we got that dry brush.
It's a good looking tree so far.
Thanks. So I'm grabbing with just a tiniest bit of water so that my brush is mostly pigment and it's really dry, to give that texture when I add it. We've got our shadow on this side, a little bit darker. I'm gonna mix up some burnt umber with a touch of Mars Black. I'm gonna start light, so I'm adding a lot of water and making sure to dab the excess water off on the paper towel. I'm just gonna use a 25-ish degree angle away from the paper, so a slanted hold with my brush. I'm just going to grab more paint first, flick it down like so, and use the tip of the brush to add in these little branches just here and there. Kind of make it wobbly. And then a darker version of that brown, so a lot more burnt umber for a thicker, more opaque. And I'm gonna go in and darken some of this. And if you want, you can grab just water on your brush and snag the base of that tree while it's still wet for a little shadow. There you go, first tree. Done. In the bag, as they say.
Great start to the tutorial, I gotta say.
John's excited. All right, but you see how like I've got 3/4 of this tree on the right side is in shadow. Our light source is over here, but we definitely are accentuating these curves on the round parts or the 3 circles that we have of this round shaped tree or a walnut tree. Oops, I said maple, but it's actually a walnut tree. Maybe it's also a maple, who knows? Maples are a little bit more open. Okay, moving on. Our next tree is going to be very similar to this one, but it's a spreading tree. So we're gonna elongate our circle shapes a little bit more for oval shapes, and our trunk is gonna be a lot shorter and maybe a little bit fatter. So maybe something like a mulberry tree, we're gonna have a short and fat trunk, something like this. And it's spreading, so we've got some branches kind of coming off like this. But then we have 3-ish ovals instead of circles. So it's flatter and wider. And I'm kind of running into this tree, but you get the point. And then that is gonna be our outline for the tree. We've got it like this, kind of like the tree that Rafiki's in Lion King. And it's spreading, so we've got some long branches coming out over here. And then same thing, same idea, wherever our light source is, we're shading the furthest point away from that light source on those 3 shapes. All right, so same exact thing for the round tree we're gonna do for the spreading tree. I'm gonna use a slightly darker green this time, a smokier, darker sap green with Mars black, and maybe a touch of burnt umber for like a smoky green. Getting it to, the right color first, and then I'm gonna grab that color on my brush and lighten it in my water cup. Maybe a touch of blue to bring it back to a little bit more vivid instead of so gray. So I've got that tone or that color on my brush, and I'm just gonna lighten the value of it by swashing around in my water cup, and then I'm gonna dab off the excess. So we start with our light value first, and then we get darker. And I'm scrubbing around that tree with this light value, maybe leaving some gaps here and there where I can put some branches for this one to be a little different. So I'm really pushing and scrubbing that around and making sure it's spreading. Then I'll grab some more of that pigment for my mid-tone. While that's still wet, I'll plug that in. And for these dappley texture shapes, I'm actually gonna drag it across, not in a totally straight line, but more straight across and wider shapes for these leaves, just to give it that sweeping, spreading effect. This dark value right here is too much contrast against these leaves, so I'm gonna blend it in a little bit more, grab water on my brush, and just kind of bring that up. So we're really starting to see those parts spread, and I'm just gonna go in with a really dark green value and add in some contrast, some shadow. Roll it around. Okay, now for the trunk. Same thing, burnt umber, Mars black. Lighter value first. And this is a wider trunk, so I'm going to start on the left edge here and just bring it. I'm not overdoing these branches. I'm leaving random gaps of white space through them, especially in the trunk. It's kind of like just sketching with my paintbrush. And then a darker version to accentuate this. Don't have room to do a full shadow on this tree, so because we've got other trees below it. But there you go. Same thing with this darker color on my trunk. I'm making sure to choose the same side, but I'm not overthinking it too much. Just giving it a little bit of pop. It helps if you, blur your vision a little bit and look at how the shape, if you can still see a tree shape when you blur your vision when you're looking at this, then you're on the right track. Next up, we're gonna do an oval shape. This could be something like a downy birch tree. So you're literally gonna start with, if you need help with visualizing the shape, you're gonna start with an oval shape. And that's about it. You got your leaves, your trunk, and it's just your average simple oval shape. Makes it a lot easier when you visualize the basic shape first. And same thing, we're gonna do a birch tree down here that is an autumn, so yellows and golds and maybe oranges. So we're gonna do a green up here. So I'm gonna grab a light wash of yellow green. Make sure to soak up excess water on my paper towel first to get that dry brush effect. So scrub-a-dub-dub and follow that oval shape. With that texture of your paper poking through. The rougher your paper, the more texture you're gonna get. So if you are working on rough paper, you're probably gonna have even more texture than I have here. This is cold press paper. There's hot press paper. You're probably not gonna get enough texture if you're working on hot press paper, which is smoother. So I've got my oval shape down with my light green. Then I'm gonna grab a touch more of that pigment so it gets more opaque, and I'm gonna go in and add that darker value on this side. And then even darker value.
Can I make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
I think with a lot of paintings, you make it look easy, but these trees, you're especially making it look easy. But the trees are coming out looking really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Is that normal? Like, oh, what's our viewer gonna be thinking right now?
I mean, I am probably making them look a little bit easier than they will be from people who have never painted a tree like this. So if you're like not super familiar with painting trees, make sure you have patience with yourself. But these are definitely a lot easier than they look, like painting trees. Because it's all about using different techniques with your brush. Like right now I'm rolling my brush on the paper to get these, whoops. I can fix that with water. To get these, what?
Some biscuits.
And some paper towel. To get these,
A quick lesson on erasing watercolor.
yeah. To get these like flecks, really tiny leaf specks, you're just rolling your paintbrush around and it's just giving it that texture. Or you're grabbing lots of pigment on your brush and very little water and you're just kind of dabbing around. So a lot of people aren't super familiar just with those basic techniques because they are newer to watercolor or they are used to painting a different way. So it's all about kind of trying different scrubbing and dappling effects with your brush and following that basic shape. John.
Very nice. If I were a beginner painter painting along, I would feel a little bit more at ease.
Well, that's good. I've got my darkest green. I'm just gonna spruce it right up and over here.
Spruce it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a type of tree.
It is, and I'm going to be painting a spruce tree. There you go. I just want it to be a little bit more textured over here and fuller. So I'm kind of lightly tapping my brush, super dry brush, with just some sap green and Mars black. See, more techniques.
This tree just had a bundle of techniques.
Yes. Tap, 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 using the belly of the brush, not the tip. Okay, so there's your, what is this, oval shape. So I'm gonna do another trunk. Lighten the value, dry it off. And where there's little gaps of just paper showing through or white space, that's where I'm gonna throw in these really thin lines, just using the tip of my brush and little to no pressure, so it's just very light. Tree number 3, an oval shape. So we've got round shape, spreading, oval. And next we are going to do a vase shape. So it's literally going to be a V shape, kind of like a maritime pine. I don't know where they live. I think they're more Mediterranean weather vibe. So Spain, we have some here in California. But this shape is gonna be literally a cone or a V shape, like so. And there's the trunk. And we've got and maybe it's a bit of a taller tree, like a maritime pine. There's other trees that have this shape too. Like so. So you can sketch that very, very lightly beforehand if you want, or you can just go for it. Okay, so I'm gonna do sap green and Mars black for a smokier, deeper green for this pine color, and then lighten it for my first value. Make sure to dab off the excess water so we can use dry brush. A little bit more water. I'm just following that V shape. Super dry. I'm kind of liking it. Grabbing more paint for my mid-tone value.
So far it's a lot of similar techniques, different shapes.
Mm-hmm.
That would also ease my mind if I was a beginner painter.
Yes, we're using a lot of the same scrubbing techniques, the exact same painting techniques. So starting with the lighter value, then a slightly darker one, and then an even darker one for shadows. Just different shapey shapes. Still need that V shape for this one, so we're going in and adding that V. So we're pointing down. And ready for the trunk. So we're covering 10 different shapes in this video because depending on if you're painting a landscape painting, depending on where that landscape is, you'll have different varieties of trees. You could have aspens, maybe you're painting a Colorado scene. You've got some aspens, or maybe the Pacific Northwest with some pines, spruce trees. So it's good to practice a variety of these trees so you can paint a variety of landscapes. But it's all very much the same structure and techniques, just different shapes. So this one, I've got all of my leaf shapes pointing inward to create a V. So even the leaves that are kind of on the outer edge, they're creating that point to come back to that V shape. And then because this is a maritime pine, we've got a lot of thin branches. You can Google image what they look like. They're very pretty, and they usually have a really tall trunk, but I need space for my spruce tree down there. Okay. Next, we have a column-shaped tree for a cypress tree. I just think Tuscany for these. And for a column shape, it's very similar to the oval, but we're gonna do an oval on top of a circle. So it's creating kind of a long triangle. And we've got our leafy guys. And our trunk. Bleep. So oval on top of a circle. Same thing, I'm using sap green and lemon yellow deep this time as my base color, as all my colors actually, and then just a lighter value for my base color, drying it off before I start. Scrub-a-dub-dub.
If you were doing a landscape and you were painting like a bunch of the same tree, maybe, do you have any tips on painting a bunch of these together?
I would paint all, if they were right next to each other, I would paint the same layer for all of them all together. So this base layer first. And then you want to add separation between each tree with your shadow layer. So those shadows are what's going to show that it's not just one big shrub lined up there, but that it's 3 individual trees or however many individual trees it is. So now I'm accentuating that bottom curve on the oval and the bottom curve on the circle. You can do a softer look with your leaves by making just poking in the color instead of having dry brush, using wet and wet. So you have a softer, blurrier look with the tree. You can use water to blend it in. So this one has a lot less texture because I was using wet and wet technique for each layer, the lighter value, mid-tone value, and then the shadow. And now using wet and wet for the brown trunk to bleed into the green. There you go. Cutie cypress tree for our column shape.
Take me to Tuscany.
Take me to Tuscany, he says. Vacation sounds nice. All right, so now we're gonna do an open style tree. This could be a poplar. Poplar.
Okie dokie.
Poplar. This one's gonna be fun. So for the basic shape for this one, we have a lot of peaks going on with our branches. I think of this tree as like having mustaches. 2.5 mustaches. So we have mustache number 1.
Now you can't unsee that.
So it's like a really weird, you could even do ovals for the mustache first, and then a half of the mustache. So we've got the leaf texture kind of following that, but that's where our shadow will be, is on these stashes. And then we've got a lot of branches happening. Like so. Obviously doing this extremely fast, but that's the shape. It's an open shape, and we've got mustaches. So oval, oval, 2. You could just do 2 ovals and then 1 oval and maybe a little section over here like that. So instead of mustaches, I guess we could just say it's 2 ovals. But I like mustaches better.
It's too late. Everyone's already picturing
the stash.
Mustaches.
So for this one, I'm also going to kind of scrub down with these flicks for my texture for the leaves. Instead of just kind of scrubbing in circles, I'm gonna do flicking motions that go downward. I've got my light yellow green, still using dry brush, unless you prefer I'm gonna do this angle, the wet on wet, but gonna cover the first stash and also leaving any gaps of white space that happen to just randomly come about from using dry brush. There's my first stash. Scrub-a-dub-dub. Second stash.
Did you say what landscape this one might be found in?
This could be, I don't know where poplar trees live. Let me know in the comments.
Yeah, maybe hit up them comments. The tree people.
Tree people. I am really not that knowledgeable on trees. I just know their shapes. And then some more mustache up here, but it's smaller. If you had any questions about if I was a weirdo, just watch my YouTube videos. What?
I'm just picturing some people probably just love that, and some people are just like,
oh,
next video.
Oh, yeah. Bye. Too weird.
That's okay.
Yes, I don't care. So following that bottom edge of the stash, as you can see, I keep flicking down. Maybe these stashes intersect right here, so it's not so... It's not a word. Not a word. And then a dark green with Mars Black and Sap Green for my last touches to the tree. It's a little too black. Needs more green. So this is an open tree, style tree like a poplar. Popular.
Can't wait to see the branches shining through this one.
Yep, it's gonna be real nice. It's gonna be really good. Just adding in some shadow to some of these up here. Here we go. Trunkies and branchies. I might add some yellow ochre to this branch for a more, I don't know, a lighter tan branch. Where am I? Poke, poke.
Wow, look at those.
Yeah, just lightly flicking my brush.
Dinkin flicker.
Yes.
Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
You don't know that reference?
Mm.
I don't know if I got it right though. It's The Office.
It's The Office?
Daryl is teaching Michael like language from the streets.
Oh.
But he's messing with Michael.
Right. Oh, I think you're right,
I
yeah.
think it's Dinkin Flicka. Whatever episode that is, it's a good one.
I love The Office. So I like to flick my brush down. I feel like I can get thinner strokes if I draw or paint in my lines for the branches by coming down. You might prefer going up, flicking up. Just play with it, you know? Okay, next one is an umbrella shape. So kind of like a stone pine. We've just got like a nice little umbrella canopy even shape, and I'm gonna just use the side of my brush.
Are you gonna draw it?
Oh. 4. I'm gonna squeeze this sketch in here. We've got a really long trunk for this because it's like a canopy. And then just oval shapes. It can be irregular like this. It can follow a specific umbrella shape if you want. I'm gonna do more of an irregular umbrella, beach umbrella with some random scraggles around like that. So I'm gonna do a smoky green for this color, for that pine look. Burnt umber, Mars black, sap green, and a touch of Prussian blue. I'm gonna lighten it for my first value. Just kind of use the belly of the brush to create these oval shapes for me, and I'm flicking super lightly on here. Might go in with some water and kind of blur that in the middle a little bit. And then same thing. Okay, I'm going really fast to give it this really airy, dusty look. We're using a slightly different technique for the tree, the leaves. And then our trunk's gonna be longer. There you have it. Canopy or umbrella, whatever you want to call it. Now we're gonna do a pyramid shape tree for a spruce.
Yippee.
The shape of this tree is a pyramid or just like a triangle. There, done. That's it. But I'm gonna go in and add these smaller kind of triangle shapes. 2 pointing down, or a couple pointing down, and then we're gonna start to point up. So I'm just getting tapered off as I make my way up the tree. Pyramid. For this one, slightly different technique. I'm going to lay down just water first on these. I mean, my water is light green because I've been using a lot of green, but you can use slightly green water or totally clean water. And then I'm just gonna start to point these up. If you leave some white space between each section, you can kind of give the effect of snow. So that's why I'm doing the water first. Then I've got a dark smoky green with sap green and Mars black and a touch of Prussian blue. And I'm gonna go in and flick downward with a thick, dark green, so we can use dry brush. But this kind of blurry, since we laid down water first, it's gonna blend and diffuse into that water area so we can give that kind of empty look. So I'm skipping around so you get some open area on the tree, kind of the effect of snow on some of these branches. And then we're pointing up.
This would be great in a winter landscape.
Yes, John, one might say that. So I'm leaving areas where it's totally open still for my snowfall. Now I'm going to grab an even darker version of that color. Pretty much black.
I officially want to go to the mountains now.
Same.
And want it to be Christmas.
So I'm using the tip of my brush to give it some of these really crisp pine or thin leaf thingies. Not a tree professional. Mostly on the right side where it's darker. Alrighty, so just flicking around, making sure we've got some white in there for some magical snow. Trunk time. Side of the brush. Love that little bleed. There you have your little sprucey. And now we've got an irregular tree that we're gonna do in a golden color. With this tree, you can kind of combine a couple different shapes that we've already done. I'm gonna do this open, what was this one?
Poplar.
This open poplar shape with, combined with a round shape on the top. So I'm gonna do these 3 circles for the top part, but it's gonna be open. So maybe I have another oval or 2 down here. And it's gonna be the Rafiki tree from Lion King. So we've got like a...
balloons.
Sure. We've got a really weird trunk shape with lots of branches, and it's... you know. Laxo. So funky Rafiki tree is what we're calling it. So for this, we're moving over to warmer colors. So I'm going to use lemon yellow deep for my base layer with a touch of yellow ochre. And then as I get darker leaves, I'm going to add more yellow ochre and maybe some burnt umber. So I'm going to do my wash of yellow first. Just kind of scrubbing it around. And then we've got our leaf section down here that's maybe kind of shadowed because it's underneath. So I'm going to do a yellow ochre, lemon yellow deep, and a touch of Mars Black for a grayish color. I'm going to use that color for some shadow down here.
Is this actually like an African tree?
I don't know. I think so. Saharan desert. Saharan...
A Saharan tree?
I don't know. Here's my funky trunk. Big ol' root. I'm just dragging out these really thin strokes. And their trunk has a bit of a curve to it. From the day we arrived on the planet and blinking step into the sun.
You know this doesn't look anything like that tree.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
All right, last but not least, we're gonna do a fall birch tree. So we've got some round tops really high up on the trunk of the tree, and the trunk is going to have that white bark with those brown spots. It's gonna be really nice. So for shape reference, literally got some circles. So you can do a couple birch trees if you want, maybe just one, up to you. But these circles are going to be on the top of our really long trunks. So obviously that's hideous, but that is the shape reference. And we're gonna do a golden dappley texture for our leaves. So I've got lemon yellow deep and a touch of yellow ochre. I might do a little bit more wet and wet technique actually with this tree. So I'm gonna roll around on this first circle, whoosh, 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 rolling around. Roll around on this second one and this third one. And this fourth one. And then grab lemon yellow deep and yellow ochre in a darker value. And we're just gonna lightly punch in while it's still wet, our mid-tone value. And now my darkest value with some burnt umber and yellow ochre. Circle of life, and it moves us on.
Maybe tips on if you were to do a red tree since we didn't do one.
If I were to do a red tree, John, I would start with the light red and then a medium red and then a really dark red. And you could do a dark red with Scarlet Lake and some burnt umber to make it more of an earthy, deep red. Okay, so now for the birch trunk, this is the fun part. We're gonna mix up a really light tannish gray using yellow ochre and Mars Black. Lots of water. And I'm gonna have a big more black. So it's a little more gray. I'm gonna have a big trunk here. While that's still wet, we're just gonna give it that dotted effect. And then same thing down here for this trunk.
Oh, this is a double tree bonus round?
Sure is. Bonus. There you go. Alrighty, there you guys go. 10 flower. What are these?
Those are trees.
10.
You really aren't a tree person.
10 trees. 10 different watercolor trees. 10 different shapes of those trees, and a few different techniques to paint them. I hope that was fun. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below which of the 10 trees was your favorite to paint, or maybe your favorite technique. Was it the scrubbing? Was it the flicking? Whatever. My favorite tree, I think, was probably the poplar tree. That was a fun one, and the word is weird. So thanks again for watching, and as always, for the support, for watching our videos, for liking and commenting and subscribing to our channel. Every little bit of engagement helps us reach more people. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and I'll see you in the next video.